Uganda is one of the countries experiencing the rise in water levels, leading to periodic flooding, displacing thousands of people living around lakes and rivers. The case in point is in Toroko district in western Uganda, where over 10,000 people were displaced between 2019 and 2020 after water levels in Lake Albert rose unexpectedly. But how big is the problem of rising water levels in Uganda?
Because of the high water inflows that we've witnessed right from the beginning of 2020. 80 districts in Uganda have been affected by floods, but we see most of the districts around Lake Victoria, Lake Choga, Lake Albert, including the districts of Ntoroko, Bulisa, the likes of Oyam, Adjumani, and others.
Up to now, the people who were displaced by floods in Ntoroko district have not been resettled and they are living in camps.
Mtoto yangu hapa maisha yetu kumubaya, tunateseka sana. Sipana jua tufanye nini. Tunakuwa kumwisho, tunafika kumwisho kabisa, mafikiri naisha yote ya kufanya. Tulikuwa na dongo yetu, tulikuwa na banyumba, mai inajaa, tunaacha.
Kwa kuona yangu mimi naona nyumba yangu imevunjika, mabati ninatupa shayue fashi mai iko na zamisa. Ile ndio shida yangu ya kwanza. Tena kufika hapa tunajenga kabasi kidogo kidogo, vile ile kuna vunjika sisi hatuna na pale tutajenga wapi?
Nabo munju ngijo no gerora tundu bale matuhakamu akatundu bale kama babana abanyine munju nindaranta na babana bagenda kusisikara bakule kubi hapo kurara nabo munju.
We request government to give us a land where to stay, because in the case this management of secondary, they test me here, we have no way to go.
One can describe the conditions in which these people are living as undesirable.
These people are really suffering because they don't have where to sleep. They just sleep in these houses. We used to call them India Poli, grass houses. Secondly, they don't have water. Where they are, there is no water. Thirdly, they have no food, because they are here. They are just temporary. They don't have lunch. They just buy from markets and different places. So I would request the government, mostly the PM office, Prime Minister's office, to try by all means see that they shift them from where they are and be compensated to a land where they can have a good living.
The challenge of rising water levels has not affected Ntoroko district alone. People living around the shores of Lake Victoria have not been spared either.
This water, when the water comes like this, there is that water
that collects in a pond, kind of a pond.
It's the water they use for bathing. We use it here for bathing, and you find most of children with scabies.
Wow. Then drinking?
Drinking, they go to the borehole, but the borehole is very far.
Although some of the disasters, like flooding, are linked to climate change caused by human-induced factors, Uganda's vulnerability is also associated with its geographical location.
In Africa, in the world, it is basically a landlocked country, but it is situated in the heart of Africa with over 26 lakes and the rivers, seasonal and permanent streams. It is also characteristic of wetlands, savannas, highlands like Mountain Elgon, Mountain Rwenzori, which are some of the highest in Africa and also in the whole world. And so, given the geographical location and characteristics in terms of drainage and relief features, Uganda is extremely prone to hazards and disasters.
The increasing incidence of flooding, according to development partners, is accelerating the problem of climate refugees, not only in Uganda, but Africa as a whole.
In other words, we are beginning to see, because of drought in many parts of the region or water drying, we're beginning to see populations move as a result of that. Our sister agency, the United Nations Refugees Agency, has done quite some substantive work in that area of work. And since 2008, it estimates that about 21.8 million people, are sort of climate-induced refugees across board every year. Now, in the same vein, it has done some work around the East Africa corridor to see, and it's very clear that a number of refugees that are in the region are also moving as a result of climate change.
The scenario of the rising water levels in Uganda is connected to climate change that leads to heavy rains in some regions, thus flooding. But how does climate change impact the country's development agenda?
That we need to pay attention to that sector, because if climate change impacts on the coffee sector, which is currently, I think, giving us about 18% of export earnings, then you can see that you're going to lose. And it's estimated that 50 to 75% could be impacted by 2050 if we don't do the right investment to ensure that our coffee sector is protected, for example.
But we would advise people to always abide by the law and ensure that they don't do what is against the law, because even nature will catch up with them.
According to development partners, state and non-state actors should ensure that the causes of climate change are addressed.
All of us collectively need to take action, shared responsibility, so the church, religious bodies, the government, the private sector, and again, even for the private sector, let's not look at climate change as a corporate social responsibility. It is not. We have to look at how the business processes, from production all the way to market, that we make sure that we are doing our business operations in a climate-friendly way. Are we using charcoal? Why don't you use solar instead? Things like that.
In areas that have been prohibited by law for settlement or other activities. As government, we don't say that we are going to compensate people, but we can only give them the advice and tell them to move away from those areas.
The increasing population is steadily contributing to climate change. For instance, between 1928 and 1930, Uganda's population was 2.8 million and has since grown to 45 million as per latest projections by the Uganda Bureau of Statistics. And settlements are taking place in fragile ecosystems like wetlands, a major contributing factor to climate change.
All these are illegal structures. They are in the water, in our lake shores. And they were not sanctioned by NEMA. But people don't listen. I think Ugandans, this is the moment of truth.
For UBC News, I am Juliet Naiga and Diana Kuti.